What's up, guys? In today's video, we're going to be going over a game that I played on lichess. Now, this is a game where I learned something really important, or a few important things, and I hope you guys can also learn from this game. So let's get started. E4, E5, knight to F3, knight to C6. Here I expected my opponent to play the Italian. He instead surprised me and played the Scotch instead. So I took, and then knight to F6, knight to C3, and here, you might think about playing bishop here and pressuring. This is actually not good, at least I don't think it's good, because white can go here. In fact, let's say you castle, white can actually take, and obviously you're forced to take. Let's say you take with the pawn, you can end up losing your bishop, so that's obviously not good. Because I didn't want to fall into that kind of trap, I decided to instead pin the knight to the king. Takes, and I didn't want to take with the pawn, because then takes, and my king would be stranded in the center. And so instead, before taking with the b pawn, I took the knight, takes, damaging the white pawn structure, and then took with bx c6. Bishop to g5, white is now also pinning my knight to the queen. Here I play the move h6. Now h6 in most positions is generally a good move to play. Though it depends, of course. I think generally in most situations, this is a good move to play. Why? Because, well, you're attacking the bishop, and you're essentially asking the bishop, like, what is it going to do on the square? Right? What is it going to do? And you also free up this h7 square, which can be really useful, because, if your king is under attack and he's castled, he can, like, jump over there, and he can, find safety. Whereas if this pawn wasn't pushed forward, then your king can be enclosed by his pawns, and that can sometimes lead to dire situations where it gets checkmated. So, h6, my opponent, surprisingly, also took. I thought he would go back and then probably develop his pieces, castle, maybe try to push this pawn. But he instead took. I took with my queen, and here he played the move queen to d4. Now, I can't really ignore this, because otherwise he's just going to take and damage the pawn structure, which is why instead I took his queen, and after takes, I castled. My opponent played the move bishop c4, and this is the critical moment, all right? I want you guys to please pay attention to this moment. This is where I learned my important, or few important lessons after I finished this game and analyzed it. And that is, in this position, I played the move d5. Now, you may be thinking, Karen, why'd you do that? It's protected. White covers that square twice. You only have it once. Yes, I was doing a sacrifice. My idea was that after takes, I would play check, which I did. My opponent would king here, would go there, and then I would take. And what ends up happening is that by sacrificing a pawn, I would strand white's king in the center and not allow him to castle. And then later, I could take advantage of this. I could develop my bishop, and I could get my rooks to these diagonals and basically attack the king. Now, why is this not a good move? Well, it's not a good move because this is actually not a threat. I mean, yes, maybe and potentially you go there, but first of all, white protects that, right? White protects this, so takes, rook here, like, this is not even a threat. Like, bringing the rook here, that's not a threat. If I, in fact, went here, he could actually trap me, He could actually trap me. That's also defended. I'm not threatening anything in particular, right? If I went here to try to pressure, once again, he could just go back to protect, So, I got really excited here. I was like, oh my god, I'm going to sacrifice a pawn, I'm going to strand this king in the center, and then I'm going to take advantage of it using the open files. But I should have thought about it. What I should have done is when I was going to make this sacrifice, I should have thought, okay, well, my idea is like, I'm going to sacrifice the pawn and get these open lines, but are these going to be advantageous to me? When I look at the game afterwards, I realized, this is not really an advantage to me. I don't really have a threat, And another thing was that I didn't consider other possibilities, Here, I briefly thought about this, but then because of my excitement, I just, thought about this, and then I just played it. I didn't think about anything else. Here, I could have just played rook here, attacking the pawn. That would force him to play something like bishop here to protect it, and then I could have done this. But you see, I got so excited, I did this right away, and this was really bad. Because I'm down a pawn, I don't really, my bad. Takes, check here. I'm down a pawn, I don't really have a threat to the king. The king is actually quite safe. And another thing is that after, rook here, I've given white this really powerful bishop. look at white's bishop. It's really active, tying down all of these different diagonals, like all of these different like lines. You know, so I needed to consider the disadvantages that came with the sacrifice. Like, does this sacrifice even work? Like, what's the follow-up? You know, I need to think about that. So anyways, takes, rook here. My opponent then challenged me on the diagonal. Here I played bishop here in order to connect the rooks. This was apparently a mistake. My opponent attacked me. Here I moved out of the way. I didn't really like the idea of taking and giving him control over this file. So rook here. King here, white actually boldly goes out to defend this pawn. Although it might look risky, I don't really have an attack at the moment. Bishop here offering him a trade. My opponent takes, and plays rook here. And here, oh, I made a blunder. I went back. Now, at this point, I have like, what, 7 minutes on the clock? Almost like 8. And I was like, well, you know, if I go here to attack this, then he's gonna come down here, and even if I win this pawn and like let's say even this pawn, this is not going to be advantageous to me because if he gets down here, then he could pose serious risks to my king. So I went here instead, and I was like, okay, well my idea was okay, I'll take, and if he comes down here, I can then come down here to defend. But after takes, he gave me a check, and then went here, and even if I do go here, now he can win this pawn. And now I'm down 2 pawns, and this is horrible, right? So yeah, I just kind of panicked here. Rook here, takes, my opponent gave me a check, he played this. I go rook here, targeting this while defending this. He grabs, rather than grabbing, now, if white grabs this, then I could grab this, and then if takes, then takes, and then we would have like a really panicky situation. Like white would push this pawn, but now I also have a pass pawn of my own. Takes. In fact, rather than taking this, I could push this pawn first. White could push, then I could take, you know, and then, you know, it's going to be this, like, really panicked struggle of who's going to get the pass pawn first, you know? So my opponent first played this, just not allowing me to win any of his pawns at all. I went here, desperately trying to win at least one of the pawns. He's not really allowing me. Pawn here, takes, pawn here. Here he grabs my pawn on c7, takes, and then pawn here, and this is really not good. White's getting really close. I can't even push this pawn yet. Rook here, my idea is to just go over to e8 and then d8 and prevent the pawn's advancements. But now he brings in the king, and yeah, any hope I had a few moves earlier is now gone. As my opponent's king nears, I push the pawn, still hoping maybe I can get it across. But yeah, d7, rook to d8, my king gets over, pawn here, rook to c8, and here I was really hoping that if I pushed, take, he wouldn't be able to, but, you know, there was a difference of 1 square. A difference of 1 square. If this king was here instead, I could have maybe not won the game, but I could have drawn. So, like, white's rook, he can just go there, and even if I promote, he can just grab it. If my king was here, however, he wouldn't be able to go there, right? So, if my king was here, he would have to, like, go here, for example, and then he could promote. So, let's say it's here, I'm here, I'm gonna promote, he's gonna promote, but it doesn't matter, because now I can just harass the king, and then I could probably get a draw. But anyway, my king was off by 1 difference. 1 difference. I'm actually wondering where I moved the king. Oh, I can't believe it. Well, technically, I had to move the king in order to push this pawn. But yeah, that's just really devastating. Anyways, rook here. I didn't even do this, but it doesn't really matter at this point. Takes. Pawn push. He obviously goes after it. And then I queen, and my queen briefly enjoys... The pawn briefly enjoys its promotion. It doesn't matter because it's over to en. And then, you know, I just push my pawns. My opponent makes rook, and then eventually checkmate to me. So yeah, so far in lichess, I have like 7 wins, 7 losses. So, you know, I'm winning some games, I'm losing some games. I wanted to share this game with you guys because, well, I thought it was really important. I was initially very sad that I lost this game, but I was able to learn some really important stuff, which is like about sacrifices in particular. You know, in this game, I was actually consistently using the checklist. There were a few instances where I would forget to, such as, for example, the part where here I played this move. I didn't consider the fact that this could go there. But yeah, I'm gonna have to be more careful. I'm gonna have to see whether my sacrifices, my attacks are actually going to work. I need to consider the long-term disadvantages that my moves can cause. And so yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this game, and I will hopefully see you guys next time.